Hello, everyone, and welcome to Perspectives, a cultural journey from here to there. My name is Tyler Burke, and I'm the founder of Omnian, and I'm joined today by our Director of Training, Chris Garcia.
Hey, Tyler, good to be here.
Always good to be with you, Chris.
Absolutely.
And I'm excited to get to bring this one to you today. This is something that I think everybody can identify with. And what we're going to be discussing today is moving from, hopefully, the idea and the feeling of being discouraged and moving towards encouraged or feelings of encouragement.
This is a good topic, and I'm really glad that we're covering it. So let's start off with giving our perspective. Discouragement in direct support rarely arrives all at once. It creeps in day by day. You're constantly meeting the needs of others while your own often go unmet. In this field, it's easy to forget that you need support too. Ignoring discouragement doesn't make it go away. It actually makes it build a wall between you and the people you support, between you and your team, and even between you and your sense of purpose. Encouragement isn't pretending that everything's fine. It's reconnecting you with your why. The belief that everyone deserves to have their needs met, and that includes you too.
You know, I don't think we talk about this nearly as much as we should in this field, right? I mean, it's the one thing, right? Even within our perspective series about assisting people and getting their needs met.
Yeah.
Well, we have needs too, and it's an absolute legitimate thing to acknowledge, but so important to recognize that we have an obligation to look after our own needs, and certainly for executives and middle managers, we have a responsibility to help our employees and the people that we supervise get their needs met as well.
Absolutely, 100%. And something else that I think is important is that whenever you strive for something meaningful, personal or even professional, like in your jobs, when you strive for something meaningful, and I believe, probably like you do, that what you and I do, what we do is bigger than all of us. It's meaningful work.
Yeah.
Discouragement will be part of that journey. Whenever expectations don't match results,
Yep.
whenever things seem like they're moving slower than you want them to,
Yep.
when goals just seem out of reach, discouragement's going to happen. It is part of the journey, and it is something that you and I, uh, even recently at different times,
Yeah.
have dealt with this.
Yeah.
It's a very real thing.
No, I mean, we tend to try to build new things often. We try to initiate new things often, new programs, new trainings, new thoughts, right? And it can be very discouraging when folks aren't receptive to it, or if you get told no. I mean, God knows, right? And if you've been in this field for any amount of time, you know that this entire industry moves at just the pace of mud. Things that should take a week take a friggin' year. Things that should take a year take a decade.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
that can be a hard thing to mentally process sometimes. So to be able to acknowledge some of that, I mean, shoot, I went through this a couple of months ago,
Yeah.
where it was at least a couple of weeks of just no motivation, just like feeling just kind of beat down and like tired and exhausted. And I'll tell you, what got me through that was an environment around here where I was able to talk about it, and I didn't feel like I had to hide it.
Yeah.
But it was something to acknowledge. We didn't have to like sit around and permeate it, and hopefully I didn't infect anybody with it,
No,
and
no.
but
Yeah.
just to be able to be real and be like, man, I am just in a wacky headspace right now. Can do so much in just letting people in,
Yeah,
no
absolutely.
shame, nothing, like it's very, very helpful.
Right on. All right, let's talk about the weight of discouragement. For DSPs, discouragement can feel like exhaustion without recognition. It can feel like frustration with people supported or other team members, emotional shutdown just to get through the day, feeling invisible, and being underpaid and undervalued. For leaders, the weight of discouragement can look like low morale and high turnover, disengaged or defensive staff, pushback on feedback or change, burnout from constant crisis management, and a culture of silence instead of collaboration.
Mm.
And, I mean, the more that we ignore discouragement, the more it blocks innovation, the more it blocks connection, and the more it blocks progress.
Yeah.
Right. And, something else that I just want to add there too, for both DSPs and leaders,
Mhm.
is negative self talk that starts to creep in.
Yeah.
When you tell yourself things like, you know, um, what's the point of all this? No one's going to listen, or they're not going to do it, or forget this, or this is just too hard.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's even almost like that bully in your head
Yeah.
even starts to tell you this, and it can really be like almost like weighing you down. That's what
Yeah.
it can feel like, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think that, it's often for us to jokingly talk about, like the underground, the other staff or maybe coworkers that are, kind of pull you aside and they let you know how it's really going to go on. They really what's going to, how things. Don't listen to them in training. Let me tell you how we really do it around here. And a lot of
Uh,
times, I think where that comes from is a place of honestly, if we're going to be real, is burnout.
yeah.
Where a lot of that is rooted in ideas of probably lost greater good vision and more of just getting through the day. Like, don't worry about all that. Just let me tell you how to get through the day because that's all we're just trying to do, right?
Yeah,
And that can be really, really problematic.
absolutely. I think that one of the way or one of the things that's going to help us is trying to understand the other person's challenge,
Mhm.
meaning the DSP to leadership,
Mhm.
leadership to DSPs.
Well, oftentimes they get played against each other, right?
Mhm.
Certainly, if you're burned out, it can be pretty common to start to certainly see the worst in things or project the worst. All right, we talk about confirmation
Yeah,
bias a
for
lot and
sure.
negativity bias and things, where it's just like, oh, knew that was coming. Knew that guy who all he cares about is money is going to make that decision. Or I knew that DSP just, is lazy and doesn't want to contribute or whatever.
Well, what happens when we do that. There's actually a name to that, right? That's episodic framing. They're taking one instance and applying it to everything. And when you're discouraged, it's easy to do that.
Mhm.
Oh, well, that's how everybody is. Oh, well,
Yeah.
that's just how the whole day is going. That's how the
Yeah.
whole week. And it's based off one
Yeah.
incident. But
Yeah.
again, I get it.
Yeah.
Okay, so in trying to understand the other person's when we're challenges, when we're overwhelmed, we stop seeing teammates and start seeing obstacles. But if we step back, we can see what others are carrying, and that shift in perspective can change everything.
Mm.
So, what DSPs wish that their supervisors knew.
Let's get it.
All right. Emotional fatigue from managing trauma, dysregulation, and crisis moments back to back. And again, not just the trauma of the person they support,
Yep.
but their own. And in those congregate settings, maybe other staff people. I mean,
Mhm.
it's right.
Yeah.
Going the extra mile without acknowledgement. Nothing kills morale bigger than going the extra mile and not getting acknowledged.
Yep. Yep. Well, it builds expectation and
Yeah,
things, right? And we're like let down twice as far
yeah, right.
when
Exactly.
you feel like you're putting in extra, and then that even goes unnoticed.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Not enough time or staffing to deliver truly person centered care. Getting stuck between system demands and individual needs. And living with the tension of low pay and high expectations.
Mm.
DSPs are not asking for special treatment, just respect, honesty, and a seat at the table.
Mm.
And that's really important, right?
Yeah.
You feel like you're part of something.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
And not a DSP table,
Yeah. Good
right?
point. Good point.
But the table, decision
Yeah.
making, and I think
The table.
that's a huge. There's so much value in DSP's perspective within an
Oh, man.
organization for
Big time.
all levels. You know.
What leaders wish that DSPs knew. Supervisors aren't just relaxing upstairs in their fancy office. They're in the thick of it. They're trying to make nearly impossible math work. Some of the challenges that they may have, stretching razor thin budgets just to make payroll, navigating constant regulation changes without drowning staff in red tape, filling shifts at the last minute, often at personal cost, wanting to raise pay, but having no funding flexibility to actually do it,
Yeah.
and managing blame from all directions while trying to hold things together. Most leaders are not checked out, they're maxed out. What they need most is a team that brings empathy and shared accountability.
Mm. And I would add on top of that too, most leaders aren't checked out, they're maxed out, and they're oftentimes very alone. It
Mm.
can be a very lonely place when you're trying to, manage a lot of the things that we just explained. And when it becomes difficult, and oftentimes really difficult, it can be a challenge to want to let people in because you don't want to stir up any fear. You don't want to let people know how scared you are or how uncertain you are right now, and that can be a really lonely place. So again, like with the rest of this session, I mean, we if that's you and that's what you're feeling, we really hope that you find some encouragement for not just sort of the greater good, but maybe to find someone to you can reach out to and take that risk and sort of let them into what's going on because it's you and your organization are worth that investment. And don't think you're doing anybody any favors by ignoring your own needs. Again, it's something that we're going to keep coming back to.
Absolutely. And as you were saying that, leadership may not always want, like you said, to let other people in on those stressors
Hmm.
because they're fully aware that there may be some staff and this person drives up in their new car and the staff's like, oh, well, look at them in their brand new car.
Yeah,
And I haven't had a raise in a year, right?
yeah, yeah.
They're aware of that.
Hmm.
And so yeah, because whenever you talk about leadership and maybe we speak with it with trying to show like empathy for them,
Hmm.
that can come off as like, all right, well, the workers too. And right.
Yeah,
And the workers are absolutely
yeah,
but there has to be that
sure.
balance there, and it's good for the DSP to try to understand that perspective of leadership
Yeah,
and not always allow yourself to just be so jaded by those cliche type of things
sure.
like driving up in the car, right?
Well, n- either one exists without the other,
Exactly.
right? I mean, so I don't know that you can even say who's more valuable.
Good point.
There's a balance and a dance here, and it's an organizational mission, right? It's not
Yeah.
just a single person. It's not just a single role. I mean, you might be pushing papers as an HR, director or something. And if you are, I'm sorry, that sounds terrible. Um, Not my personality, but you're a vital. You're just as vital as everyone else, right? I mean, everything built is makes up this entire mechanism.
So let's talk about some common ground here, right?
Mhm.
How to meet these needs together. So here's the bridge. DSPs want to be seen, supported, and respected. Sometimes when we experience burnout, we feel unsupported by our supervisors. Leaders want to sustain services, support staff, and stay mission focused. Everyone is working to meet needs with limited time, energy, and resources. Sometimes it feels like two teams, frontline versus leadership, but we're all actually on one team with one mission. If we can really see each other, we can foster honest conversations and ask, how do we make this sustainable for all of us? Okay, the skills involved in this. So, creating a culture of encouragement isn't passive, it's built with intentional habits, small daily choices that add up over the course of time. Now, for DSPs, end of shift reflection. Now, all this is about is just taking that moment after your shift, maybe when you're just driving home or whatever on your way home, or you're waiting for your Uber, just ask yourself, When today did I help someone feel safe, feel seen, or when did I help someone be successful today? Set boundaries without guilt. Really, really important. I need a moment to reset is powerful. A regulated DSP is going to support people a lot better than an exhausted DSP. And one of the things that I know happens a lot of times is it's easy for you to become the person that can always be called on, the person that's reliable. They know that, everyone knows that about you. But there are times when it's okay for you to say, no,
Mhm.
I am unable to fill that shift today. No, I can't stay 3 hours longer. And saying that without fear of retaliation
Mhm.
is really important.
Yeah.
Really important. Um, Encourage a peer daily. A quick message. You handled that really well. It can go a lot further than you think. And also, I would encourage you to have an honest and open conversation with your supervisor.
Yeah.
You might be surprised at the response that you get. Now, listen, there's no guarantee that you're going to get the response that we would all like, of course, but I think you might be surprised sometimes if you
Mhm.
were just honest and open. And it's a great way to even find some common ground.
Mhm. You know, I think there's probably for many people, not all, but it is common to sort of almost have like a default feeling of shame
Mm,
when
mm,
we feel like we just don't have anything left. I know I've been sort of the steady Eddie, if you will, of the group, or the organization, and I just can't. And sometimes that can it makes me think of even something is sort of along the same lines of like when you make a mistake, you don't want to admit that you're wrong
oh,
because we're afraid of looking incompetent. Well, when you do that, what actually happens is you build trust, right? So it's like this feeling of shame that is holding us back from actually a very, very positive thing, right? Somebody that handles a mistake well, it is better that that happened than if it would have never happened in the first place, because you handled that opportunity in a positive way, right? You've had an opportunity to build trust, and in the same way with having some limits, and some limitations, and being able to say no isn't going to make you look weak or unreliable. It actually is a sign of maturity, and that you have the ability to make that investment in yourself. That's a very strong, and mature response. And I think that there's an opportunity to actually demonstrate and to come off very, very positive in that scenario.
yeah, very well said. Good point.
Yeah.
Now, some skills for leaders. Recognition rituals, weekly shout outs, post-it notes, or just a quick bright spot email. Um, those are tiny gestures that can actually make uh, a big impact on the person. Model self-care. When leaders honor their limits, it gives others permission to do the same. Ask better questions. Replace "why didn't this get done" with "what do you need from me so you can do your best work?"
Mm.
And just to add a couple more for both, I think that, and we kind of mentioned this in the perspective, trying to reconnect with your why. Like,
Mhm.
why did we start doing this? Any of us. And I think a lot of times it's because I really believe it's a strictly pure reason of we want to support people.
Yeah.
And, the longer that you stay in this field, especially if you start to take on different roles and have different responsibilities, it's easy to get away and forget that initial feeling of why,
Yeah.
and sometimes you actually need to be very intentional about finding that. And also, there's a saying it's called grounded in gratitude.
Mhm.
Actually recognizing the things that are good about the job, that are fun about the job.
Yeah.
Not only the relationships that you make with people supported, which sometimes you make great relationships with them,
Mhm.
but also the people you work with too. Like, I've made great relationships with people
Yeah.
supported and really strong ones with people that I work with. And
Yeah.
there's a lot to be grateful for in doing this, despite very difficult times sometimes.
Yeah. It makes me think back when I used to own a provider agency, and I remember I did go through a tremendous amount of burnout,
Yeah.
certainly at the end before I exited. And one of the things that did help, and I did try it from time to time, because my day was just tasks, and usually the negative ones, right? I mean, at that point, it was when things went wrong, or putting out fires, or just meeting just m- what felt like tedious responsibilities through the day, and it just was no fun.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the things that did help was, there was a gentleman that was in one of our programs that I used to personally support as a DSP, and would take him out to lunch like once a week or something, and it just kind of got me back into getting back into that relationship, and that dynamic was really effective in reminding me of what we were there to do, because I didn't feel like I was really doing a whole lot other than paying bills and handling HR issues, and the unfun part. But something as simple as just going out to lunch with somebody I used to support was very, very helpful
Yeah,
in
well,
remembering.
that sounds like that was your reset
It
almost.
was, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the motivation behind this, when you're stuck in survival mode, motivation fades. Growth and connection feel out of reach. So if that's you, you're not alone by any means. But here's the shift. Don't aim for thriving yet. Aim for strategic survival. Plant seeds of encouragement. Motivation grows where people feel like they matter.
Mm.
Encouragement is not fluff. It's actually fuel. It restores the belief that this work matters, even when it's hard and exhausting. Motivation returns in moments, a thank you that you didn't even expect. Seeing someone gain new choices or confidence because of your support. A leader saying, I see what you're carrying and I appreciate you. Whether you're struggling or steady, here's what I want you to remember: you're not alone and your work matters. One more thing, Tyler, that I want to add about motivation, because
Mhm.
I think that autonomy is very motivating.
Okay.
When you feel like you can make a decision, whether at the DSP level, leadership level, when you feel like making a mistake is not going to be the worst thing in the world, that
Mhm.
your boss is going to come down on you, and when you feel like you can make a mistake and if it was done with good intention, and that
Mhm.
you can recover from it.
Mhm.
Um, being micromanaged, if you will,
Mhm.
makes you feel more like you're just a cog in this machine and not somebody who's actually out there being a leader, in any environment.
Yeah, I think that there's no opportunity for creativity or contribution
There you
if
go.
all you're
Yeah,
doing is following orders
good point. Yeah.
and completing tasks. It's the complete opposite to give somebody that autonomy, that
Yeah.
creativity, that ability to risk, and to try things out, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Um, but yeah, I mean, I know I light up anytime there's an opportunity to be a little bit creative as opposed to just doing what I
Oh yeah.
what I have
No,
to
for
do.
sure. Yeah, I've seen that.
For sure.
Habits and habit cues. Encouragement isn't a grand gesture. It's built into the habits that we repeat every single day. So, some common cues and shifts. So, a common cue might be a person supported lashes out. The default habit might be withdraw or just snap. The encouragement habit, pause and think, what need isn't being met here? The cue could be a coworker misses something. The default habit, complain or gossip. The encouragement habit in that situation might be to ask them, are you okay? Remember, support builds teamwork and blame just breaks it. The cue might be that you just feel overwhelmed. And the default habit, and I know a lot of you are going to relate to this, you just push right through, head down, I'm just pushing through. The encouragement habit that we're talking about is to pause and breathe. Ask for a reset. Refuel before you just run dry. Now, why should we even press on, right? To everyone reading this, watching this, whether you're exhausted, whether you're questioning your role or hanging on by a thread, this is for you. You're part of something bigger than policies and procedures. You're part of a civil rights movement that is still unfolding today. A movement to liberate people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And you're liberating them from systems of exclusion, low expectations, and invisibility. This work is not just about support. It's about freedom. It's about equity. It's about justice. Every time you help someone make a choice that reflects their voice, every time you hold space for someone to be fully themselves, every time you choose to stay curious instead of frustrated, you are tearing down the remnants of a system that once told people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, you don't belong. You are building something better. People that we support, people with IDD, they deserve new opportunities that weren't available yesterday. They deserve real relationships built on mutual respect and lives of joy, meaning, and self-direction. And those opportunities don't come from a program or a policy. They come from you, from every DSP who shows up with heart, from every leader that balances people and spreadsheets, from every moment where human dignity is prioritized over convenience or control. So if you're discouraged, I want you to hear this. Don't quit, not today. Not when you're still in the middle of a movement. Not when the people we support are still waiting to be seen, waiting to be heard, and waiting to be included in the fullness of life. The work is hard, but the vision is revolutionary. You're not just supporting people, you're part of a liberation movement that is changing lives. Hold the line, refill when needed, rest, reset, but don't give up. You are needed, you are powerful, and the mission is worth it.
So if you find yourself being encouraged in that place of feeling amped up and ready to go, and your tank is full, so to speak, take a moment and spread that encouragement around. Call out the good in the people around you. Take the time, take the moment. A single word here, a single word there can mean the world to somebody who's feeling discouraged. And if you are and have been feeling discouraged, I hope you heard what was just said. This is a movement, and people need you at your best. Make the investment in yourself. And that brings us to the one thing. And the one thing is something that we end every session with. This is the one thing that hopefully we can say to ourselves on a daily basis, to remind ourselves, and to keep bringing us back to that why. And it's this. Today in my role, I choose to assist people in getting their needs met. And today, I will also prioritize getting my own needs met as well.